Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Jewellers Academy podcast. My name's Elin Horgan. I'm a jewellery designer and maker based in Bristol in the UK. And today I'm very excited as I'm going to be speaking to another Bristol based jeweller, Hannah from Slab Jewellery.
Hello.
Hannah specialises in beautifully Gothic handmade jewellery inspired by 16th century memento mori treasures. Her pieces are handcrafted in recycled silver and gold using antique tools and the traditional lost wax casting technique. Hannah has an incredible signature style, and I urge you to go and check out her work via Instagram and her website. We'll share the links in the show notes so you can check those out later. And today I wanted to find out more about her inspiration, her techniques, how she came to set up a business, and what her future plans for it are. So, Hannah, welcome.
Hello.
Thanks so much for joining me today. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your jewellery business?
Yeah, sure. So you did a really great intro there. So I'm Hannah. I'm based in Bristol, and I've had my jewellery business for about 5 years now. I keep on getting confused because of the pandemic, and I've been saying 5 years for a while. So maybe it needs to change. So yeah, I do a lot of things with skulls, spikes, snakes, bones, anything like a little bit gothic, a little bit edgy. And yeah, that's me.
That's great. Thanks very much. So how did you initially get into jewellery making? Can you tell us something more about that? Was it something you always wanted to do, or was it a kind of recent discovery?
No, so my background, I did a fashion promotion degree, which at the time seemed like it wasn't going to be that useful for anything. But it turns out that I actually use quite a lot of the skills that I got in my fashion promotion degree now. So thanks
Brilliant.
very much, Rainbourne University. So I started making jewelry. I did a silver ring in a day course with Kim Thompson, who I think is another Jewelers
Yes.
Academy podcaster.
Yes, she is,
Um,
yeah.
so I did that at the Folk House, which is in Bristol. It's a really great venue. They do loads of different creative courses, ones that run for like days, some that are like just a single day. So I went along with my sister and we made rings in a day, which was really fun. And then we signed up to do a course with Kim in the evenings, so just general silversmithing. So we learned all about piercing with saws, soldering, texturing metal, all the sort of general silversmithing skills. And again, I did really enjoy it. I really loved working with Kim, but it didn't inspire me that much, just the basic silversmithing. So then I did another course. You can see that there's a lot of courses that I did. And I did a course with Amy Pepper, the jeweler, and that was a wax carving course. And that one I just absolutely.
So I'll just let you go back to the bit about Kim's workshop.
Yeah. So after doing the Ring in a Day course, me and my sister again signed up with Kim to do a longer course, so evening silversmithing lessons. That was at her shed in Bristol. So we learned all the sort of basic silversmithing skills, saw piercing, soldering, texturing metals, all those different sorts of skills, which was great, really good to learn those things in such a lovely, friendly environment. But again, it didn't really inspire me that much, making things just with metal.
Mm.
So then I did another course. So this was an evening workshop with the jeweler Amy Pepper, who
Mhm.
specializes in wax carving. So this was a wax carving ring in an evening sort of workshop. And that one just, I fell in love with it. I absolutely adored it. I was suddenly able to translate all of my slightly mad ideas into something that could be made into jewelry. So straight away I went along to this workshop with a really clear idea of what I wanted to make. And I think I was quite ambitious for the amount of time as a beginner, but that often happens, doesn't it? When you're first when you're new to things, you're not sure how complicated they are, so you just go in all guns blazing. So I made this ring and just absolutely loved it. And after that, I just bought all the all the equipment. I just got it for myself. Um, and I was one of those people with all the gear and no idea really. So I made all these rings, and I suddenly realised that the workshop that I've done with Amy Pepper, she had talked us through the wax carving part of it, and then we handed over our wax rings to her, and then a few weeks later they came back as finished jewellery. And what I realised was I had literally no idea what happened between making a ring in wax and having it in jewellery. So I had to do a whole bunch of research, looking loads of things up, asking friends, finding out like what happened, even just where to send the wax to be cast into metal, and then getting it back again. There's quite a big difference between freshly cast metal and a finished piece of jewelry. So again, I was sort of a bit clueless and just tried different things. Yeah, I just made a lot and made a lot of mistakes, but it's a good way to learn, I think.
Definitely, definitely. And I think it's interesting you talk about that thing. It was like that was the thing that really captured your imagination. Because I think a lot of people have that, don't they? That they sort of try different jewelry making techniques and it's like, no, it's not quite this, it's not quite this. And then suddenly you find that thing that you really love and it's like, oh yes, this is
Yeah.
this is the one for me. So
And
that kind of leads me on to my next question, I guess, which is about I mean, obviously you did some courses to kind of get those basic skills, but how did you then learn? You talking about sort of having to find out a lot of that stuff yourself about what the casting process was and how you sent stuff in. Was that just a question of research or asking people, or how did you learn that?
yeah, so I was quite lucky that one of my friends that I worked with at the time, so at the time I had a full-time job, she had actually trained as a jeweler in Birmingham's jewellery quarter. She wasn't a jeweler at the time, but she was a very useful person to know because she gave me so many places that I could go and send my things. But yeah, I applied a lot of the skills that I'd learned with Kim. So obviously there's a difference between a sort of freshly cast like pendant and then like if you want to solder it onto a chain or attach a jump hoop. So there's loads of stuff that I learned with Kim that I use now in my jewelry practice. Um, but yeah, having that friend with a little bit of insider info was so helpful. And then when I started sort of being a bit more serious about it and I set up an Instagram account, and I connected with other jewelers, and I did find that actually a lot of jewelers are really like friendly and helpful, and there's just a really lovely community of jewelers that is great. And I did actually buy some courses from Jewelers Academy as well,
Oh,
starting
fantastic.
out with I bought a stone setting in wax
Oh
course.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which was great just to learn a bit about how to go about setting stones in wax. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, it's nice. I think probably lots of people listening, this will resonate with them. It's that thing of sort of, if you haven't had a formal training in jewelry, sometimes it's a mix of online courses or in-person courses and finding stuff out yourself and almost just finding your own way of doing things. Do you think that that way of doing things has kind of enabled you to, because as I said in the introduction, you've got a really strong signature style. Do you think that's kind of helped in a way that you haven't necessarily followed a more kind of strict path on how you do wax and what you do with it, that you've explored it a bit yourself and found
Mm.
your own way of doing things?
Yeah, possibly. I do think that the more I learn about wax carving and like best practice, I do sort of think that some of my stuff is a bit mad that I make with all of my big long spikes. Like, it's sort of amazing that they cast as well as they do, and I think that's partly down to my casting house. But yeah, I do think that if I'd had a more formal training about like the right way to approach things, I might not have the same look. Um, in fact, a lot of my stuff, like some of my pieces that I make by melting silver and using a little stamp, like I'm pretty sure it's not a legit technique, but it's one
It is
that
now.
works for me. So yeah, I do think that there's always a balance between learning to do things so that they're like properly made and have longevity, but
Mm.
then also not being tied down to sort of rules that have existed for a long time just because that's the way that they're done, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the way you produce more innovative stuff, isn't it? By actually pushing those boundaries a little bit and breaking some of those rules. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. So
Like
tell us more about the wax. What is it you particularly love about it? Why did it capture your heart in such a way, do you think, when you first tried it out?
I think just my designs are very sort of 3D, like all the skulls and the snakes and roses and those sorts of things. There are jewelers out there who can do incredible things just using metal. Alex Monroe is one that I think does all those carvings in metal, which is incredible. But it just gives me that like freedom and flexibility. And especially when I'm trying out new designs, like the speed and like yeah, the flexibility of using wax and being able to really quickly build something up. I say quickly.
In jewelry terms.
Yeah. Being able to see it um come together like in 3D in front of you is just really nice. And yeah, I think it does give me a little bit more freedom in terms of what sort of designs I'm coming up with. So yeah.
Mm. I think there's something great about wax, isn't there, that you can, because the material itself isn't that expensive, you can really play around with it before you kind
Yeah.
of find the thing that you want to cast. It feels like there's a bit more freedom there. You're
Yeah,
not making really expensive mistakes all the time.
yeah. So yeah, I had a really beautiful opal that I knew I wanted to make a ring for. And I think I made about three. I had this design in my head that I wanted to do, and I did sort of three attempts before I got to one that I was actually happy enough with.
Mm.
And yeah, so as you say, it's easier to sort of experiment and try out different things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I'd love to know more about your signature style. I think it's so unique and so strong and recognizable. Was it something you always had, or has it developed over time? How did you come
Um,
to?
It was pretty so I had before this wax workshop with Amy Pepper, I had this idea in mind that I wanted to do a skull flanked by two roses with a big spiky halo. So that's sort of been like the main thing. Like I was a teenage goth. I'm still a bit alternative. Um and that sort of like I just think skulls are cool. So and I knew a lot of um a lot of skull jewelry tends to be like really massive.
Mm,
That isn't necessarily for me. Like, I don't feel like I can get away with that sort of like gigantic rings. I also like to put my hands in my pockets, so don't want anything too chunky. So yeah, it was basically me trying to find some jewelry for me that I couldn't find out there. So I decided to make it myself. So yeah.
yeah, I love that. You can't buy it and make it. So how has your style kind of developed? So you started with things like the roses and the skulls. How has that kind of developed over the past couple of years you've been in business?
So yeah, it was always inspired by a historic memento mori jewels. So that's where a lot of the skull motifs come from. There's a very like with that sort of jewelry, it's a very stylized sort of skull. It's never quite sort of anatomically correct or
Mm.
perfect. It's very much more stylized. So if you do happen to be at the V&A, you can go and see some examples of memento mori jewelry in their jewelry gallery. But yeah, they always have this like quite unique sort of look to them. So that's what I was trying to capture in my rings. And then there's just like a lot of symbolism around that. So the skulls and the roses sort of represent both death and life, sort of the eternal circle of life and death. And then bringing in the snakes, they have that same sort of symbolism around them. Like historically, they're often used as an Ouroboros, that endless cycle of life and death, but they're also used both as like sort of representations of evil some in some ways, but then they're also used in like the doctor's symbol of a snake wrapped
Oh,
around.
up and round, yeah.
So it's that sort of dichotomy, life, death, good, bad, that I really enjoy. So I'm just trying to bring in other sort of influences like that. So yeah, snakes, daggers, I think, are often used in a similar way. They've got that sort of side of good and bad. Um, but yeah, that's where it's all sort of come from. I love like the symbolism behind it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And was that I mean, the memento mori jewelry, was that something you had been interested in anyway, or was it as you started to make jewelry, you started to discover some of that?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So yeah, I booked into this course with Amy Pepper to do the initial wax carving. And yeah, I started looking at sort of different jewelry ideas that I could take along. So that was because I knew it was coming up and I didn't want to show up without any idea and like just make something that I wouldn't be all that happy with. So I wanted to go along with an idea of what to make. So yeah, it came from that, but also things like I think I'd just been on holiday and I'd been into a great big like Gothic sort of Catholic church. And I think they're so full of amazing symbolism and amazing imagery. So that's where the big spiky halo rays come from.
Yeah.
A trip to a church in Malaga where there was the Our Lady of Sadness with tears rolling down her cheeks and these amazing big spiked halo. And I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if instead of a woman crying, it was a skull? And yeah, that was where that came from.
Amazing. And I know a lot of your stuff at the moment has got gemstones incorporated. Is that something you knew you wanted to do from the start? Or again, is that more that you've been exploring different things and that had kind of led you to incorporating more stones?
Yeah, gemstones, they're they're such a funny one, aren't they? Because they're so exciting and sparkly and interesting, and there's so many different stones that you can use and play with, and there's a lot of symbolism around different gemstones as well. Uh, they are they can be tricky though. Like I really really love using them, but it is much more difficult than just a
Yes.
plain ring without them in. Um, but yeah, I've got a dagger necklace on at the moment which has different gemstones in, and I just think it's really nice to be able to have that option to like start to personalize things as well. So that's nice about like going direct to a jeweler as opposed to buying
Mm.
from the high street. You can say like, oh, I really like that, but I'd prefer it to have this gemstone because this means something to me. Or yeah, people have like gemstones that represent like them and their partner or
Mm.
like their family or yeah, remind them of something. So I think it's really nice to include that as well.
Yeah, so much more personal, isn't it? And that's definitely the one of the huge benefits of handmade, that you can do all those little tweaks so that you get something that's really unique to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you were mentioned earlier that you were working full time when you started doing your course. When did you actually decide to start up your business? Was there something that prompted you to do that? Was it the usual problem of having made so much stuff that you needed to sell it, which is often the reason people start, I think.
Partly, but also as I say, after I did this whole like buying the kit, making loads of stuff, I did have a lot of rings, especially that I started with. Um, and yeah, I just felt like there was something in it. I felt like almost straight away. Maybe it's like the naivety of someone who's never worked in the business before, but I was just like, I could make this into a business. But I was quite careful about it. Like I started when I decided to go for it, I had saved up a bit of money and I was like, okay, I'll invest. I had £1,000 and I thought I'll invest £1,000 in tools and castings and just see where I get to from
Mhm.
that. So I started I went down to part-time at work. So I dropped to 4 days a week, which made a massive difference to my business because there's a big difference between just making jewelry and having a jewelry business.
Yeah, yeah,
Like they're quite different things. I think, as I say, I was quite naive when I started. I just made some jewelry and I thought all I need to do is take a photograph of this, put it on Instagram, and then I'll sell everything.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there's quite a lot more to it than that, turns out. Who knew? um, so yeah, I was quite careful. Like I made sure in the first sort of year or so when I was still working full time, well, part time, I had that initial investment and then I sold some things and I was like, okay, even though I haven't recouped my initial investment, I know that I've committed to having like that much money in this business so I can spend again up
Mhm.
to that sort of limit that I'd given myself. And then, yeah, I did some markets, sold some things, and I thought this is great. And then I dropped down to 3 days a week at my job. And then my job changed and it went horrible, which a whole other story. Um, but yeah, my job changed and I'd been working there for about 4 years. And I
Mhm,
just thought, do you know what? I could, I set myself up as taking a sabbatical. So I was like, I want to take 3 months off.
mhm.
I want to just change it. And that was when I really threw myself into the jewelry. I just really went for it. And within about a week, I was like, I'm not going back to that job. I'm just not.
Amazing. I love that. There's something about making that kind of mental commitment, isn't there? So, right, I'm all in now. I'm going to do this. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I
Uh,
was quite lucky in the start because my background is as a website designer.
mhm,
So I was able to pick up some freelance work, which did really help like at the start when I was like trying to build that jewelry business, but it wasn't quite enough to actually live on. So being able to do a couple of days a week of freelance work did really help me out.
yeah, that makes a huge difference, I think, doesn't it? And takes the pressure off slightly
Yeah.
because, as you say, to begin with, it's not like, suddenly thousands of pounds are rolling in every week. It's trying to balance the investing in the business and getting out there and also, yeah, paying your
Yeah.
mortgage or rent or buying food,
Yeah,
whatever else you need.
exactly.
Um, so tell us a bit more about kind of where the business is now. Whereabouts do you sell at the moment? Are you online only, or do you have stockists as well, or how does that kind of work for you?
So I have my own website, but I do have a couple of stockists. So I'm stocked in the very lovely Clifton Rocks in Clifton, in Bristol. The whole team there is just lush. They were really, really supportive when I was quite new to it. I took part in Meet the Maker, March Meet the Maker, which gives you various prompts throughout the month to share more about your business and
Mhm.
about you as a maker. And one of the prompts was future. And I had to psych myself up to it. So I was feeling brave, but I said, in the future, I'd love to be stocked at Clifton Rocks. And I tagged them. And then they very kindly got in touch and they were like, yeah, we'd be interested. We're always interested in talking to new jewelers. So then I was able to actually, I emailed them and I was like, okay, what is it that you look for? Because at that point in time, I didn't really have a collection. I was just sort of making things that I liked. And they gave me some really good advice about creating a collection with various price points, different necklaces, earrings, rings. And so, yeah, I think it took me about a year to make that collection. But when I did, I went back to them and I was like, I've done it. Here we go. And yeah, they agreed to take on some of my pieces. So that
Oh,
was really
that's
exciting.
brilliant. Yeah, that's so good. And getting that kind of first-hand advice from, someone that really knows what sells and the sorts of price points that work for them is so invaluable, isn't it? You can't,
Yeah.
yeah, there's nothing that beats having that direct information straight from the stockist. That's so good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I knew straight away that I wanted to be stocked in places, which did really help in terms of like thinking about my business as a business that was going to be stocked in places, because there's so much to think about in terms of pricing and what um what types of things you're going to be making and where you think you're going to sell. There's so many things to think about, but I think by doing that quite early, that really helped to set me up so
Mm.
that it wasn't like a big surprise when I did go to a stockist, and then that made me feel more professional and it made me feel more comfortable approaching them as well. So yeah,
Yeah. And if you've got your prices right from the start, I think that makes a huge difference, doesn't it? You're
yeah,
not then having to sort of reprice so that you can sell
yeah,
sell
definitely,
through stockists. Yeah.
yeah.
So what pieces of your kind of current collections are your best sellers? Is it do people still love the skulls, or is it something else that's popular at the
Yeah.
moment?
So yeah, the skulls do well. I think people really like that they're like individually hand carved. So the little 3D skulls. I keep on doing this, but I'm not actually wearing it today. Um, but I think that's really nice, and especially I do a lot of events as well, so markets, tattoo conventions, that sort of thing. It's nice that people can like look at them and then choose their favorite. I think
Mm,
that does really appeal to people. Um, Interestingly, I've got a stockist in Wales, who really sells these spiky ones really well. So for them, these spiky ones as earrings as well, they go really well at that particular stockist. So
interesting.
yeah, it's interesting to see like at different sort of places and in different environments, different things are more and less popular. But
Mm,
yeah, the little skull pendants are definitely a favorite.
it was the ones, yeah. So you touched on it just there about being at events and shows and things. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I know we were chatting before we started recording about you having a very busy couple of months being at lots of different shows, but I'd love to know a bit more about how you kind of use those in your business.
Yeah, so events are something that I do really try to do like at least one a month. They make such a big difference, like especially now on Instagram, it's so hard to like break outside of your bubble and reach new people. Sometimes it's even hard to reach the people who do follow you, which feels wild, but that's a different matter. So yeah, I think it's really important to like get out to events and get in front of people. So I try to yeah, as I say, do at least one a month. I have started being when I first started, I used to do quite a lot, but I try to be quite selective about
Mhm.
my events now, because my stuff is quite alternative, uh, sort of straight for I don't want to say standard, but sort
I
of
know what you mean. Yes.
standard craft fairs. Sometimes my stuff, um, people aren't into it.
Mm,
Basically, it's
mm,
it's an acquired taste. If you've got it, you've got it. But if you don't, then you don't get it. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, at some more sort of straightforward events, I don't do that well. So I have tried to really focus in on alternative events. I do tattoo conventions, and that is just because I know that at those places the people there will be alternative. They probably will be interested in skulls. They like daggers, they like snakes. Like, especially at tattoo conventions, they're quite often themes that crop up in tattoos
Mm.
themselves. I know I've got a little snake tattoo. Um, so yeah, it just means that instead of standing all day trying to sell to people who aren't that interested, I can stand all day and chat to people who think my stuff is cool. So
Yes,
that's really
yes.
nice.
Yeah, and that makes such a difference, doesn't it? Finding those right places, even if
Yeah,
they're not, even if it's not an event that's got, tens of thousands of people coming through the door. If you're getting the right people through, that's all you need, really. Just the people
yeah,
that get it. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And then also things like just getting to different parts of the country. Like, I'm based in Bristol, but I've done events in Leeds, Liverpool. I've got one coming up in Manchester, going to London, just trying to like break out and like see people from different areas, because even if they're not interested, they might, like, I quite often get people going, "Oh, my mate would really love this stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, well, tell them." But yeah, it's just about trying to expand those boundaries that I'm in.
Yeah, nice. Nothing like an in real life event as well to
Yeah.
really like see what customers like and what they're into. It
Yeah.
makes a huge difference. So, looking back over the past couple of years of your business, any kind of highs and lows you want to share with us? Anything you'd have done differently if you were doing it again?
Yeah, well, I think I touched on this a little bit earlier. Like, I think the naivety of going into it without any training or any knowledge of the industry. Um, yeah, looking back, you sort of think, wow, like, I just I just tried it. And like, I think there's something quite powerful in that. Like, I just really I genuinely believe in my business.
Mm,
I think it's good. So and that makes me work really hard on it. It makes me really try. And I think again at those events that really comes across, because I just really enjoy making jewelry. I really enjoy talking about jewelry. I
yeah.
just really enjoy like hearing people's stories about their jewelry, or like if somebody's bought off me and they're like, I've never taken this off since I bought it. I'm like, oh my God, amazing. Like, it's so I just have such a strong passion for it, um, which isn't really the question that you asked. But, um, but yeah, sometimes I think the lows are things like um, getting that comparing yourself to other
Mm,
people, comparing yourself, and especially on social media. See, it's such like a such a curated view, isn't it? And people only share like the good things.
yeah.
Then you see people who have like these big stacks of orders and they're like, "Oh my God, I've had so many orders this weekend. How can I possibly keep up?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've had one this weekend." So it's just one of those things that like if you don't really believe in your own business, it can really get you down.
Yeah.
And that means that you can lose a passion for it. And then I think that then affects your business. So, yeah, there's definitely been times where I've been like, oh, nobody wants to buy my jewelry. Maybe I should just stop, which is really sad because I think, I, I don't know, I think there's room for everyone. Like, there are a lot of events that I go to where other people have skull jewelry or bone
Mm,
jewelry or jewelry with snakes on, you know. But I think if you've got like a strong vision of what yours is, then there is space for everyone. Like, my jewelry won't be for everyone, and that's fine. And like someone who really likes one of my pieces might really like another jeweler, and they've got to decide where to spend their hard-earned money. And like, if they buy from another jeweler, like, that's okay. Like, cool. The other jewelers made some money. Brilliant.
yeah.
And I think, yeah, there is space for everyone, and it can be easy to forget that when you're
Yes.
comparing yourself.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think it's so easy to look at other people as you say, their kind of highlights reel and wonder, why am I not doing as well, or why am I not doing this or that? But I think if you've got the passion for your business there, that's the thing that powers you on, isn't it, through the tricky times.
Yeah.
So any good advice to share, I guess, for people who might be starting out on their own jewelry journey?
Um, I think talk to people, like try to make friends, make contacts. When I was starting out, I reached out to a couple of jewelers who were like at a similar sort of stage in their business to me, and that's
Mm.
been really nice, so invaluable to have other people at a similar sort of stage, and we've like grown together. That's one of the things where you're comparing yourself because you're like, they seem to have grown way more than me, but fine. But yeah, and like in Bristol there's a really great community of jewelers who do share information, and I think being friendly. I've had it before where people have just like they've never engaged with me in any other way at all, and then they've just come straight in and wanted to know exactly how I make something, and I think,
Yeah.
no, like at least say your stuff is cool. Where did you start? Because I do try to like. I had so much help when I was starting that I do want to help like other people. So people message me and they ask for advice or um, get tips and stuff. And like I'm always happy to share, but just be nice about it.
Yes. Agreed. Goes a long way. So, what about, I guess, what's next for you and your business? Have you got plans for the future, particular things you're working on, or where is the business going?
I mean, I'd love to say that I have like a grand 5-year plan, but that would be a lie. Um, I would really love to. So I say this quite often. My dream is, in the end, that I will have a beautiful little gothic shop with my jewelry in, maybe some other like other creators' work in there. But I really, even though I do a lot of events on weekends, I like weekends. And with a shop, you have to work in it on
Mm,
weekends. So
yeah, true.
my grand plan, I think, skips quite a big section in the middle where I go from what I'm doing now to one where I have a shop, but I don't actually run the shop. I just waft in and I have ideas and I meet clients and I come up with wild jewelry for them. And then somebody else does all the admin.
I love that idea.
That's the dream. So yeah, check back in 5 years.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll come and visit the shop. Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me today, Hannah. I've loved hearing about your business, and I think your passion for what you make and your business just really shines through in everything you do. Do you want to come and share where people can find you online, maybe your Instagram and website and anywhere else you
Yeah,
are?
so you can find me on Instagram. It's slab_jewelry. Um, I've got a website, slabjewelry.com. Um, so yeah, find me in either of those places. And as I say, I love if anybody messages me, I do try to message back and yeah, just chat about jewelry. It's great.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, please do go and check out Hannah's amazing jewelry. We'll put the links in the show notes, just so you know where to find her in case you didn't quite catch them. And thanks so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful week. All right, bye.